fight fans? Welcome to Caveman's Corner with your host, Jeff.
Captain Caveman!
Dens.
What's going on, fight fans? Today I got Slubs with me on the board, like always.
Hey, guys.
Why do you put the sexy voice on when you get on the radio and you talk like all manly otherwise? You know, Superfly does that too.
Is that true?
That is very true. Every time you talk to a girl, Sean Superfly Felton will always put the man's voice on. Anyways, to something serious, today I have with me a real American hero, Erik the Bull Herbert. He was a Marine. He protected the president on Marine One. He won the Presidential Service Badge, and it was actually awarded to him by George Bush. In 2006, he was a Marine of the Year. He's also a police officer. He won the Jeffrey A. Incarnito Memorial Award, and that's awarded for demonstrating unselfish contributions to others in the course of the academy. That's a pretty big award coming from a bunch of cops. He's a 5-2 pro. For most of his pro career, he was the #1 rated pro fighter in Western New York. He ran Victory MMA. He started it in 2008 with Erik Herbert, Don Lilly, and Tommy Neff. It became the best MMA gym in the country. Well, not in the country, at least in New York. Yeah, Erik gave me the no when I said the country. He didn't like that so much. He retired, and he merged Victory and Western New York MMA into the area's first super fight team. And he's also turned himself into one of the best trainers in the business. Welcome, Erik. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. I had a lot of help with a lot of that stuff, so there's a lot of people that were helping me along the way, but thanks for recapping that. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Like, it's not too often I get to say I'm with a real hero, and you've been a real hero of mine through most of my life, at least since I've met you.
Well, I appreciate that, man. It's been great being your friend, and I'm just thankful that we got to work together and coach together and get some wins together.
Yeah, for sure. I know you pretty well now, and I still don't understand. How did you ever end up on Marine One?
Man, so I joined the Marine Corps out of high school. I graduated, and about 12 days later, I went to Marine boot camp. The short story is my job was a military police officer, and select groups of military police officers get assigned to Marine One to guard the helicopter squadron. And basically, if you don't know what that is, they're the green helicopters with the white tops that's they're assigned to presidential duty and foreign dignitaries and vice presidents and stuff like that. And they do just transport of VIPs, president, vice president, etc., and the family members. Could be anywhere that they travel throughout the world. And yeah, selection board came around. There's a couple hundred MPs or so at the academy, and they picked 11 of us that year. And I was just fortunate enough to be one of the 11, and I started my career there.
That's pretty awesome, man. I don't know too many people that get to hang out with the president. How much interaction did you actually have with the president?
It varies. Around the holidays, we would see him more. He would. I'm talking about George Bush. He would go out of his way, and we'd see him a lot. We'd have dinners with him and interact with him more. But, I saw him, 50, 100 times. And as far as talking to him, I talked to him, a handful of times. And in your last day or so, your last week there, you get what's called a grip and grin. And what you do is you go to the White House, you go to the Oval Office, and you get a handshake and a smile and a picture. And I brought my dad there because you get one guest. You kind of hang out with him for a few hours and talk to him with your friends, because you're leaving the unit and you have other friends who are probably leaving too, because their service is over with. And, so that was a highlight. I got to talk to him for a while then and stuff like that, yeah.
I don't mean to change the topic real quick, but I got to talk about your dad real quick. Your
Sure.
dad's pretty involved with racing. Can you tell everybody what your dad does?
Yeah, so my dad, he's a wild man. He's like 65 years old, and he works for the Penske racing team in Morrisville, North Carolina. And what he did, his job's a little bit different now, but a couple of years ago, he was the guy, he works on the pit crews for Elio Castroneves or Will Power. I can't remember the other. I'm not really into the racing. I probably should be because my dad's won the Indy 500 and stuff like that. But so he was on the pit crew for it. He's got a couple of huge Super Bowl championship rings, but the
racing,
yeah. So he right now he's on Elio Castroneves' team. But yeah, he works for Penske Racing. He won the pit crew championship, which was a really big deal. That's like, big super championship ring, and he was on the best pit crew in the business. And then they've won the Indy 500, so he's got a championship ring for that. And yeah, man, he's just really involved in it. He like I said, he lives in North Carolina, where Penske is headquartered at, and yeah, he's crazy. He's the man.
Erik, has he taken you through any of that operation or no?
Yeah, twice. So actually, twice this year. Never been to a race in my life. Never seen it. Never, maybe on TV. I thought it was really boring when I was a kid. He was always into it. In April, we went there. He gave us like a private tour of Penske headquarters, which is just, I can't even explain it. I couldn't, being so removed from what the sport really is. I don't even really know what I was seeing, but there's just, hundreds of race cars there, and it's like a garage that just goes on for days, like hundreds of thousands of square feet, and it's like cleaner than anything you've ever seen. I mean, there's not like a drop of oil, speck of dust, but yet it's a garage for thousands of race cars, and it's just the level of engineering and precision is just, like I said, I couldn't even grasp it. I really couldn't. But they have all their championship banners, like, you have them up, they have them in the rafters like you would at a, Super Bowl championship banners at a stadium or whatever, and my dad's in a bunch of the pictures, so that was cool. And then last month we went to Watkins Glen, and there's like September 3rd, 4th, and 5th or something like that, and I took my son and my wife and my brother and my sister-in-law. We went down, and Elio Castroneves took third that race, and we got to go in the pits, and we got pictures, like literally he shook my son's hand. I'm talking about Castroneves, shook my son's hand, put his helmet on, and started the race car within like 5 minutes. And it was just like, again, and just so lucky to be able to do that. So yeah, I just recently started getting exposed to it a little bit.
And I know all this because the same day he went to Watkins Glen for the race, we went there to go hiking, and we got caught in the race traffic. We had no idea there was a race going on.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Now,
Yeah.
do you consider yourself a race fan now after that experience?
I'm a fan. I mean, these guys were so accessible. They were so humble. Like, you could just, like, Mario Andretti was, like, just driving around on a scooter, takes a picture of me and my son, just like that. I mean, just like we're sitting here, there's, like, no security for them, and just very accessible, very, very fan-friendly. And so, yeah, it's tough not to be, a fan of that after you see it. So it was really cool.
That's very cool. And I had a real similar experience, and I was in the same boat. I had never been to a race, and I went down to Charlotte, and my uncle had done some work for Bill Elliott.
Okay.
This might have been 20 years ago. And he goes, "Oh, no, you got to see the shop." And I thought, oh, yeah, okay. There's going to be some cars in there, and I'm looking at a garage, right? Exactly like you described. I mean, to the T. You could eat off the floors. There were probably 50, 60 cars in there. He had a full gym on the second story, and Elliot used to make his guys clock into the gym 4 days a week, and they had to spend at least an hour and a half working out, or they couldn't be on the team. So it was one of the most impressive organizations that I had been around, and just to see what goes into that, I was immediately I gained a whole different level of respect for the sport.
Sure, yeah. And just to touch on the gym thing, Jeff, you're going to like this. I wanted to tell you this. I forgot. So Coach Beekman, UB coach, he was like the UB wrestling Division I coach for like 18 years. New athletic director came in, fired him or whatever, which was messed up because, I went to all the camps with, Coach Beekman, and he was just huge for wrestling in Western New York. Anyway, he works for Penske now, and he lives in North Carolina. And you know what his job is? He is in charge. He's like the athletic director for Penske Motors. So listen, I go there in April, and they give me this tour, and it's like this state-of-the-art, nicest gym you've ever seen. And my dad like works out there because he was on the pit crew, and there's like all these guys like jack guys like working out. I'm like, they take it really serious. And he's like, yeah, the guy who just redid this gym, he just got hired like last year. He's from Buffalo. Maybe you know him, but my dad didn't know his name. So Eric comes up to me, and he's like, with my dad, and my dad's like, hey, do you know him? And I'm like, and I don't think Beekner might have recognized me because I went there with, to wrestle, and I met him a bunch of times, but I don't, you
He
didn't
just
know me
looked
by
at the
name.
ear. We all know each other.
Yeah,
by the
he
ear.
saw my ears, so he probably knew, I was a wrestler or whatever. But I talked to him, and I'm like, what do you do? He's like, yeah, I'm basically, in a nutshell, the athletic director for Penske Motors living in North Carolina. So he went from UB, Division I wrestling coach for 18 years, to now heading up everything at Penske, which is just crazy. So it's definitely a Buffalo connection there. A lot of people in Western New York were influenced by him, and so if anybody wonders what he's doing really good in North Carolina and making an impact down there. So it's cool.
Very cool.
That's
very
awesome.
cool.
So going back to the Marines, what do you think is tougher, boot camp or making it through a fight camp?
I would definitely say boot camp. And part of that is because, you're an 18-year-old kid away from home for the first time. And mentally, it's just like, what the heck did I do? What did I get myself into? As far as, fight camp, I think it's probably, I don't know. I experienced it when I was older, 4 or 5 years after that. So maybe there's a maturity that helped it be maybe a little easier for me. But yeah, I would definitely say Marine Corps boot camp was the hardest. Yeah.
What do you think about President Obama? There's been some controversy how he didn't salute the troops. I know we had to talk about that before, but now that you had some time to think about it, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I try to look at a lot of my first reaction, first off, I'm a Republican, diehard Republican, have been for a long time, but I hope I'm not a zombie, right? I hope I just don't drink the Kool-Aid so much that I can't have like a realistic, interpretation of things that happen. So it's really easy for me as a Republican to say, oh, Obama is just the worst guy in the world and he wants to burn the country down. Oftentimes, I don't think that's the case, as much as that might be, what some people might think a Republican would say. As far as him not saluting the troops, I don't know, man. I've seen those guys, the president, the Secret Service, the people, they run around. It's crazy. I mean, it's chaos, and they're trying to go place to place, and their minds are on so many different things. When he didn't salute the Marine getting off Marine One, that was, very tough because I was that guy. You know what I mean? So it touched home. But then, he came over to him, he like half hugged him, talked to him, said, I something to the effect of I forgot or, was zoned out, wasn't thinking. I don't know exactly what he said, obviously, but, to be honest, I don't think it was the coolest thing ever, but, I don't know, probably unintentional, to be honest,
Awesome. That's a lot calmer after you reflected on it.
When it first happened, I'm like, no way, this guy, how dare he, but.
How much interaction did you actually have with the Secret Service?
Yeah, I would say definitely more. Yeah, a lot. Without so we're in charge of the helicopter, and he's going to be on the helicopter. So they're like attached to him at all times. Doesn't matter if he's on the helicopter, bathroom, kitchen, whatever. They're with him. So they have to go on the helicopter too. So of course they're like, what time? What time are you leaving and things like that. When you first start off in the unit. And it's different for everybody. You get promoted, you get different opportunities within the unit. But when you first start off, you're just like the new guy that stands next to the door, cuts the salute, marches, gets your picture on CNN, and that's it. You're really just like a bodyguard in a nice Marine unit, or not even a bodyguard. You're just like a novelty, I guess. To be truthful. You're just in the uniform, saluting. You're just part of the show. You're not involved in the planning of it. You're not involved in like the details of it. You're just kind of doing what you're supposed to do, standing tall, looking good, and that's it. I shouldn't use the word novelty, but you know what I mean. But then as you get further along, you start to get promoted to a sergeant or whatever, and now you're starting to be part of like the movements, where it's going to be, when it's going to be, where he's going to go, how many people are going to go with, what times you need to be at the airport, and things like that. And when you get to that interaction level, then you're talking to the Secret Service. Then you're working with them and talking to them and figuring things out with them. So yeah.
Did you guys ever hang out?
Why? Because of the trouble they got in South America?
That may be my next question.
Well, all I can say to that is they were at separate hotels than us a lot of the times, because logistically, we would get there before and stay after. So, like, if the president was going to be somewhere for a day, we're going to be there 2 days before, setting up, rehearsing, and probably stay at least 1 or 2 days after. The Secret Service is only going to be there when he's there. I mean, they would do some other things, but that's pretty much it. So we would be likely at a different hotel than they were, because we were just there longer. And so I can say that most of the time we weren't at their same hotel, and most of the time we didn't hang out with them. That's what I would say.
All right. Well, I'm still going to ask my next question anyways. For those of you who don't know, the Secret Service has been recently getting in trouble for having hookers and drinking and doing drugs and stuff. So my question to you is, who parties harder, the Marines or the Secret Service?
Yeah, I would. Well, geez, after the stuff that's come out in the last couple of years, I'd say the Secret Service by far. It's probably hard to challenge them at this point. They went pretty hard there for a while.
I'm sure there's some Marines spitting out their coffee telling you they're going to party way harder right now.
Yeah.
He's protecting face.
Yeah. They went at it. That's for sure. They got pretty. They had a good time. I can say that.
All right, I got one more question about the Marines. As a Marine, what do you think of Kaepernick not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem?
You know, I didn't know the questions you were going to ask me, but given what's going on today, I
told you I was going to ask this one. You knew this one was coming.
I figured it was going to be like this. You know, I know you mentioned you would, and I figured it was going to kind of be in a relation to the military and stuff like that. So this is probably the most rehearsed I'll be today. I'm not going to sit here and say
Eric's phone is going off. That's what that buzzing is.
It's my wife. I was texting her how cool this is. I was like, this is cool. This is like legitimate. And she was just answering, oh, that's cool. It's exciting.
By the way, Eric's wife is a beautiful blonde lady, and she sings the anthem better than anyone else. She's got to come back to TNT and sing the anthem.
Yes, my wife, Diana, like Jeff said, beautiful, blonde, great singer, and she does. She sings the anthem at the fights. And so if you've ever been to the TNT fights, that's her singing the anthem.
Don't cut that out when we edit that.
No.
Yeah, make me look at it. Keep that in there. As far as Kaepernick goes, I don't watch. I'll be the first to say I have not watched one NFL game this year, and in the past I've been to Bills games and things like that. It's really not my thing. My concern is not necessarily that he did it, right? Because you have freedom in the Constitution. Okay, we get it. You're allowed to protest and it's freedom of speech. Okay, we get that. But my concern is what is he? What was he doing to help this cause that he feels so strongly about? Like he sits down and he protests what's going on in society, and his outlet is supposed to be the national anthem and sitting for it, and that allegedly is supposed to bring attention and show his disdain for what's happening in America. Black Lives Matter has been mentioned, racial tensions in police and everything else. But I'm like, here's a guy that's like a multi-millionaire. And like
60 million guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's easy for everyone to say, like, what does he have to complain about? I don't even think that. I just want to know, what is he doing to help the cause that he feels so strongly about? He has to protest in front of millions of Americans. So what is he doing? Now, I know since he sat down and it got a lot of attention, he's like talked to troops. It's not about the troops. It's not about this. Okay, well, it is. Like, you can't decide what offends the troops, right? Because that is an offensive thing to do to the troops, especially when they're standing right in front of you at attention and you're sitting down because you got this, you feel so strongly about this cause. So my question is like I said, what is he doing? Has he donated money to raise up inner cities? Has he started a job fair
to be devil's advocate, he has donated money, and that we're talking about right now is kind of proving his point. He's definitely brought attention to the topic, and we're all standing around talking about it. Every football game, I think that's the first thing we talk about. So at some point, I think he's accomplished the goal of getting the attention out there for his cause. Did you actually know how many verses there are to the national anthem?
So a couple things. Yeah, it came out a couple years ago as like a ploy to make the players look more patriotic. So they're getting paid from the National Guard just to have the players out there instead of being in the locker room. And there's a very racial third verse to the national anthem. And Kaepernick has donated since then, and now he's brought attention to it. But my question is though, and I tried to look it up. What did he do the weeks and the months before he sat down and put himself in the spotlight? Because it's really easy to be like, oh, everyone's looking at me now. Oh, look, I'm meeting with this guy, that, donating here, donating there. I want to know what he did before that, before he had his manager telling him who to pay, what to do, who to look like, what to stay. I want to know what he did in the last 2 years. What were you doing in 2015? When this stuff started happening to really help the cause that he feels so strongly about. And because I couldn't find anything dating back. More recently I saw that he donated to different organizations and stuff like that. But if he has been involved for years and this has been like his thing and he's just been like leading the way and like trying to, change this problem, then more power to him. I can't give him enough credit. Not happy with the way he chose to protest, but whatever, dude. It's his right. But if it's in response to the attention, then I don't know. It gets a little weird for me.
Does it change anything that he actually talked with the service and now they're kneeling, or do you feel the same? Do you feel maybe he's just ignorant, or do you feel it was like a slap in the face?
I just think it's damage control. That's my impression, and that's because I haven't been able to find stuff that he did prior to him sitting and getting in the limelight. Like I said, if he's been doing stuff and he's been donating and he's been like spearheading this cause, and I just caught it, and he's been doing this for a while, and I'm just hearing about it now, then that would make me change my opinion on it. But if he's doing all this stuff now, after he's in the limelight, like I don't know, man. It just seems a little disingenuous, and like I'll be the first to say I'm a little ignorant to it. I don't follow the NFL that much. I tried to research this a little bit because like I said, I knew you were going to ask, and to me, it just doesn't really add up.
I think I did better research than you did.
Yeah. So if you did, no,
I meant about you because I researched you pretty good.
But correct my ignorance if I don't know. Has he been like prior to him sitting, like prior to that day where he sat and everybody said, "Oh my God," like what was he doing? Like was he in the communities? Was he donating? Was he?
No, I think Eric, you hit the nail on the head, to be honest with you. And this was one of my biggest beefs with the whole situation was he didn't. Nobody knew he was going to sit except whoever is on the inside. His buddies or teammates that, he's close with. But certainly the owner didn't know. The NFL didn't know. There was nothing that he did prior to that to help the cause. Since then, you're right, it's been a knee-jerk reaction where, he took some heat and now he's trying to make up for it. So whoever his PR person is has got him donating money now. They start a website. I think he's donating $100,000 a month for the next 10 months to whatever cause that is. And I don't know if it's to be honest with you, I don't know if it has to do with police brutality or Black Lives Matter, but I think you hit the nail on the head. He did nothing before sitting down. He has moved into the state where now he is donating money. Again, I feel the same way you do. It doesn't feel genuine to me, and I think it was the wrong vehicle. I think if he had these things set up before he sat down, he could have told people he was going to sit and why he was going to sit, and he would have got a much better reaction. He could have taken this and gained the traction that he needed by doing it the right way, and he didn't do it the right way.
Yeah, and that's 100% what I feel. And I listen to Shannon Sharp, who's been like, I don't even listen to Shannon Sharp. I don't listen to any of the sports stuff, but I have been listening to him and Skip Bayless and stuff like that. And they're just like all over it. Like we don't have the right to say stuff like that because he can choose whatever vehicle he wants to do it and all this stuff. And I'm just like, man, like at some point. Tacky is tacky, right? And there's probably at some point, there's just so much you can do, and like that way to do it, I don't know. But
we forgot too that he's doing a job that he's getting paid incredibly well for. So I mean, he's making $60 million guaranteed to work for the San Francisco 49ers, which is an NFL franchise. So whether you think it's the right vehicle or not, I disagree that it is the right vehicle, because if I come to work with a shirt that says I'm with stupid, they're sending me home, right? I guarantee as a Marine, there are certain things you can and cannot do without them telling you exactly what you're going to do.
Sure.
So we forget that he's in the workplace when he steps in there. He has enough money to gain the traction that he needs outside of the workplace, and I think that was my feeling towards the whole thing. You've got the money to do it. If it's really that big of a deal to you, then start a cause. You'll get the traction. You'll get the media. You're a superstar athlete, right? You'll get it. But I still think it was the wrong thing for him to do, to walk into the workplace, take a seat, not tell anyone, and now it's on ownership.
Yeah, I like that. I haven't really put that perspective on it. The workplace professionalism, there's things I have to do at my job every day that I would not do if it wasn't policy, and I'm sure we could probably all relate to that at some degree. That's just part of being an adult. That's just part of
Sure.
putting your shirt and tie on every day. So for him to be at work and doing it, I think that's a good point. I don't know.
I got one last thing on this. Since it's my show, I can close it out, and then
Sorry.
we'll go to a commercial. I would have to say that although he does have other methods to get it out there, I think this is the most efficient way for him to get the word spread. A lot of times these guys go out and they do this stuff. We never hear about it, especially concerning racial matters. They like to keep that stuff kind of quiet because it does affect your brand. And maybe at some point he gets fed up and he makes a stand. I know there's a lot of stuff I do that I don't tell people I do. I mean, you go to the hospital, you visit kids, you do stuff, but sometimes you don't want that out there. And maybe he doesn't want that out there because it affects his money. And maybe now he's got a big contract, he hit it big. He knows maybe this is it for him in the NFL. He's not a starter. So maybe now's the time to get the word out. And that's all I got to say on it. I got to end it right here before you guys beat me up. I feel like the Democrat in the room here. I just want to advertise my doctor, my PT. He's my physical therapist, my personal trainer, Dr. Lee Kroll. He's a PT, DBT, and a whole bunch of other words I don't know. But if you need to get a hold of him, you can email him at drkrollpt@gmail.com, and he'll take care of you. All right, let's
Nicely
move.
done.
Yeah, that's a pretty good commercial, right?
Yeah, did a great job.
I thought you were great. This was going to be like I thought we were going to like break, and it was going to be like Allstate, get your 15% off or whatever. So okay, cool.
No, I'm like
Soon. That's coming soon.
I'm like a real host. I got to do like my own personal
Yeah,
plugs.
no, that's cool, man. Yeah,
He
keep
did
it
my
authentic.
tape, even though we don't have the camera running. He taped me up. All the swelling went away, so now I can punch people again.
Cool, man.
Don't tell him I'm punching people though. All right, so let's get into your fighting life. You were a professional fighter for a long time, but what started you fighting?
So I started fighting, I think I was 19. It would have been like 2006 or 2005 or 2006. I was in the Marine Corps. I was a young kid, and we did martial arts in the Marine Corps, and then they had like fights in Virginia, and they were as like archaic as fighting at a Cracker Barrel, like after hours, and it just with no like just stand up fight. No, it was like you could do anything, but you couldn't punch to the head. So you could wrestle, punch to the body, kick, jiu-jitsu, anything, but you couldn't punch him in the head. So there was like that, and then
Were you fighting other Marines?
no, that was so it starts off as like training with other Marines, and I wrestled, and so I was I guess excelled. You'd say because these other guys didn't wrestle, and then they'd show you an arm bar or whatever. They'd show you a couple submissions, so you don't really know what you're doing, but you think you do because you know how to wrestle, right? So. And then that turned into, hey, they have fights out in town. You can like do this against people who are not in the Marine Corps, like normal people or trained people, whatever. And then there was a radio ad on I was driving in my car, and there was an ad on the radio, and it was like one of those typical like monster truck, like this Sunday, live cage fight, whatever.
You should do our commercials. That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was excellent.
So and that's what it was, and it was like advertising for a fight. So I called for tickets, and it was a Wednesday, and the fight was on a Saturday, and they called me back Thursday. I emailed them, and they called me back Thursday, and they said, "Can you be 205 pounds?" And I was like, "Well, that's exactly what I weigh, coincidentally." And
To buy tickets?
yeah, right. so I answer. I'm on the phone with him, and I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, well, we need someone to fight. Would you fight?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy wants me to fight." My perspective is like, I'm like honored, or I'm like, I'm excited. When really this guy was just probably trying to sell some tickets that I didn't know. So I went down there Saturday, right, and I weighed in 205. That's what I pretty much weighed anyway. And I just fought this karate black belt in front of. It was an all-black university, Hampton University. I was like there was white fighters. There was a couple of white people in the stands, but it was an all-black college, and which is crazy to even let this go on in a college because like I don't think that would happen up here. But that's what it was. It just and I fought, and I beat the guy up, and I was like, this is awesome, and the rest is history.
That's crazy. It's just like my first fight. I wrestled all day, and I drove there. I was just going to corner people, and they're like, "Hey, why don't you fight?" And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, that's how it was back then, man.
I know, it was crazy. Except we didn't have to weigh in. Not like you.
But you won.
I won.
You beat the black belt.
I beat a black belt too, but that doesn't mean anything because I don't know how to fight on the ground.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
All right, you had a lot of knee problems at the start of your career. How did you make it through your career, and how's your knees holding up now?
So I basically had the same knee problem addressed poorly by several different military doctors. So what I had was I tore my meniscus, which is like a cartilage cushion in between your knee joint. But what happened was it tore across like on a horizontal. So when you moved your knee in a certain way, it would flap up, like the cartilage would and a piece of that cartilage would get stuck in your knee joint, and so then you can't move your leg because you got something in your joint.
Bucket handle tear.
A bucket handle tear. Right?
I had that
That's
too.
Exactly what it was.
Meniscuses are overrated.
Yeah. Well, so the military, who is, I don't know. I just had such a terrible experience with their healthcare, and then the VA after. They did 3 surgeries on me to fix this bucket handle tear, and every single one of them failed. And then I got a 4th one from the VA after I was discharged, failed. They actually did the wrong surgery, which is, you should see my medical record, man. It's like a horror story. But so what I did is I just trained around it. If it didn't flap up and get caught in my joint, I didn't have any problems. I could run, I could kick, I could punch. But if I even just twitched or got up from my chair too fast, it'd be stuck in my joint. It'd be like a 20-minute process to try to get it to lay back down. And this went on and off for 4 years. But I kind of just worked around it, like I said, and then it happened in one of my fights, a pro fight at the casino. I was winning, and in the 3rd round it happened, and it was locked out. I couldn't move my leg for 2 minutes. So they carried me to the back. I won the fight. They carried me to the back room. And this doctor comes up to me. His name's Dr. Hold on, it'll come to me in a second. Anyway, he looks at me. He's the ringside doctor, and he's like, I'm going to look at your knee. And I'm like, his name's Dr. LaPointe, Paul LaPointe. And I'm like, whatever, dude, I've been dealing with this forever. You're not going to tell me nothing I don't know. And I don't have health insurance. So he said, gave me his card. He said, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. Come see me Monday. And I'm like, I don't have health insurance. Just basically get away. And but he was adamant. This guy was just in my face, listen, I know what's wrong with you. I was trying to explain a bucket handle tear to a surgeon. I think, he's like, I know what's wrong. I know what you're saying. He's like, come and see me. So this guy, Paul LaPointe, in 2010, after the injury happened in 2007, I think. So maybe it was 3 years or 3.5 years. He does the surgery on my knee for free. And anytime I ever get a chance, any type of exposure, I always try to talk about this guy who's probably even forgotten about me. Like I said, it was years ago. Did the whole thing for free, and he fixed a bucket handle tear. Now, knock on wood, that was 2010. It's 2016, and I haven't had a problem since.
Oh, that's amazing.
That is amazing.
So
we had Chris and Janice in earlier, and she talked about your legendary pain tolerance, and she told about the story where you jammed your finger, and it was all crooked, and you just put it back together and taped it up. This is the kind of pain tolerance Erik Herbert's got. That's why he's one of the best.
Yeah.
Probably the toughest guy I know.
Yeah, I mean, and you're to fight without health insurance,
Well, we all do that.
Yeah, that's pretty. Unfortunately, that's pretty standard nowadays.
You actually started a gym while you were fighting. How much trouble was that? Because not only are you trying to set up your gym, you also have to train yourself. You have to get fighters in. You have to make money. Can you go through that a little bit?
Yeah, so the thought process in the moment was I was 22 years old. My girlfriend at the time, now my beautiful wife, she just got pregnant. And I said, oh my God, I'm in community college. I'm overweight because I haven't been training. And I'm in community college. I'm trying to drink in, partying, just happy to be out of the Marine Corps, trying to live it up. And now my girlfriend's pregnant. And I said, well, I have a bunch of money saved up, and I'm just going to go spend it all and open up an MMA gym. And that's exactly what I did. And, oh my God, I couldn't even tell you the amount of people who, bashed me and said I was crazy and I was an idiot and this and that. And, they, whatever. But it actually worked out. And the thought was I was not going to fight because I had this reoccurring knee problem. But then I have these fighters, and I have, inexperienced fighters, but I have this gym, and I'm in it every day, running a business and on the mats teaching this and that. And I'm it took a week for me to be okay, no, I don't care about this knee injury anymore. Let me try to lose weight, get back in shape, and fight. So that wasn't the plan, though. The plan was never to fight, just to coach and be a business owner. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But then that quickly took a backseat to me wanting to fight again, and then I got caught in this weird place of fighting and coaching and running a business. And honestly, looking back, it kind of just, they all demanded so much that I just kind of was a jack of all trades, master of none, and just did the best I could to kind of get by doing them all. But I never really devoted 100% effort into any of them, business owner, coach, or fighter. I just kind of was scraping the surfaces of all of them.
Just to address, we talked about this a little bit before, but you, now that you're not fighting anymore and you're coaching, we talked about how we fight different with the fighters. When you're fighting, there's got to be some part of you that says, I cannot lose. I have to win. Now when we train these guys, sometimes we don't go as hard as we necessarily would if we're fighting. Can you talk about how that change is occurring in you and how that's affected you as a coach?
Yeah, so now that the fighting part is behind me and I don't really do much with the business side of it, now it's like the coach is like the forefront. So now I'm kind of like trying to do more than just scratch the surface with that. I'm trying to like make that like the focus. That being said, yeah, it's completely different. I mean, someone I could be going against someone and I want to see them make the right movement and do the right thing. So I'm not always trying to get out. I might like lay there for a minute or sit there for a minute or pause to see what they're going to do. Like, are they going to slip? Are they going to roll? Are they going to shoot on the takedown? Are they going to go for a submission that's right there? And then if they do, they're kind of like a step ahead of you, and I'm like, whatever, they tap me out or they don't, whatever. I just want to see what they're going to do because I want to make sure they're getting better. As a fighter, I would be like, I would never show like a vulnerability because you can't. You have to smash, you have to win, you have to be the best you can be at all times. And so it's very different. It's very different when you're training as a coach compared to training as a fighter.
I don't think we've had the ambulance come once to the gym that we're at now, Western New York MMA. Can you tell some of the ambulance stories that you had at Victory?
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those things, hindsight 2020. We did not train safe at Victory, or even before that when I was in the Marine Corps and stuff like that. And even now it gets tough to really keep it safe because there's a lot of testosterone, a lot of egos, a lot of goals, a lot of things that people want to accomplish. And at Victory, it was basically just see who could hit each other the hardest and survive it and do it again the next day. And, people got hurt. I know what you're talking about specifically, but there were some injuries. There were some, orbitals broken, hands broken, stitches.
That's not what I was talking about.
Oh, you were?
Right. I wasn't talking about Kyle Rosinski, the Coyote, getting his eye socket broke by Coach Herbert.
Okay. Well, I thought that's what you were trying to get me to say, but
I was talking about the time you had the ambulance there, like 3 days in a row or whatever, when you hurt your knee and then.
Oh yeah. Well, that was a couple things. First it was my knee, then I got food poisoning, and they came, and I don't know how I got food poisoning, but it was one of the sickest I've ever been, and I like passed out. I like threw up. Yeah, anyway, it doesn't really matter. But the ambulance came like twice in a row, and they didn't know what the gym was and what was going on, and I don't know. It was a crazy time. It was kind of like the Wild West.
So, what was your toughest fight?
The toughest fight I probably had was against Elias Theodorou.
UFC fighter. Yeah,
he's a UFC fighter. He won the Ultimate Fighter. And yeah, I think he's like top 15 in the world or top 20 in the world, something like that. Yeah, it was tough. And the reason that was the toughest, there's a couple things. I did a lot of things wrong to make me not perform. But at the end of the day, you just got to call it what it is. He was good. And I've lost fights before because I never really lost a fight because the guy was better than me. I always kind of lost fights because I didn't cut weight right. I didn't take it seriously enough. I made a mistake in the fight. But in that fight, I did have some of that stuff that I just talked about, but he was also a stud. And it was kind of like, you kind of got to swallow a tough pill when you realize you're not the man, So and I didn't have anyone to blame but myself. For some of it, but a lot of it was just he was very talented. So that was a tough one, yeah.
You talk about weight cutting. Can you talk a little bit about the weight cutting process and how it differs, how you think about it now as a coach as opposed to how you thought about it as a fighter?
Yeah, so as a fighter, for me, I can only really speak to me. As a fighter, I always kind of thought I put it off a lot. So if I had to be 185 pounds and I was 200 pounds, I would say, well, I can dehydrate myself about 10 pounds of water. I just got to diet off 5 pounds, and that's not bad. I can do that in a week. Well, then the week would go by, and I'd be like, oh, I got 10 days, and I just kind of never really took it serious, and I always kind of relied on the dehydration part. And for that fight specifically, I had to lose almost 15 pounds from Monday to Thursday. And that was too much for me. And that's not everybody's like that. Some people can cut a ton of weight, dehydrating themselves. For me, anything more than like 8 pounds for me, what I've realized now in water, I'm struggling, and I'm struggling the next day and the day after and things like that too. So that fight was one where I waited to the last minute. I didn't take it seriously enough. I didn't listen to my coaches, and then I had to cut too much water weight. And on fight night, 4 minutes into the first round, I was dead. And, I got no one to blame but myself, So as a coach, now I try to tell the guys, don't do that. Listen to me. Diet down within 6, 7, or 8 pounds, being hydrated, and then we can sweat it off the night before or the morning of for a night weigh-in. And, you can minimize your dehydration time, minimize how much you have to be dehydrated, and kind of approach it that way. So.
Yeah, I wish we could get that through some of our fighters that we see walking around with sauna suits on like 6, 7 days out. They're cutting water weight already. I think it's a little bit too early for that. I don't think you want to cut the water out till the very end. What's the most weight you ever cut in a 24-hour period?
My 24-hour period, I think I was like, it was probably like 12 pounds in 24 hours, which again, to a lot of people, like that might sound like a lot to the average person, but to a fighter, 12 pounds doesn't really sound like that much. To me personally, for me and my body, that's too much for me, and everybody's different. So I'm not saying that guys shouldn't do that or should do that, but having done it for so long and so many years and made the weight class, I can tell you that wasn't the right thing for me to be doing.
I did 23 for that William Gerhardt fight. The fight was off, so I was canceled the fight, and then I ate and I drank and I got really fat, and like they called me 2 days before and like, you still want to fight? And I'm like, sure. So then I had to cut 23 pounds.
That would put me probably right into the hospital. So
God
bless you.
You're pretty young. You think you're ever going to make it back in the cage again?
Well, I turned 30 a couple months ago. I turned 30 in April. There was a time earlier this year where I kind of tried to go that route, but I was kind of told by my job that probably wouldn't be the best thing for me to be doing for my career. And at the end of the day, it's my department, being a police officer, my department's been great. I have nothing but good things to say about them. I really do. They've treated me really well. They've trusted me with a lot of things, being a newer cop. And when they kind of ask you, hey, could you help us out and not do this, or we don't think this is the best thing for you to be doing, you don't want to just say, I'm going to do it anyway. So I kind of respected their point of view. I don't agree with it. Obviously, I want to fight. But I respect them, and so I decided not to fight, or I would be on this King of the Cage this Saturday, and I would have been on the last one too. So I'm probably not going to fight anymore unless something changes on in my professional career. Again, like we talk about professionals, like sometimes you gotta be the corporate. You gotta wear the t-shirt. You gotta do what they want you to do, and so I probably won't be fighting anymore. Yeah,
that's all right, as long as you're in my corner when I go out there again.
Oh yeah, we'll get you back out there.
All right. One more time. Well, maybe 2 or 3 more times. Depends.
Yeah,
you give me 3 bums.
That's how it starts. You do 1 more, then 3 more, and then you feel good. So you do 2 more after that, and then it's a slippery slope, man.
You changed my style. I gotta come back for 1 more.
You do have a much better style for you and for your body type now, and I do think you'd have a lot of success if you did come back. But
I already talked about with the family we're coming back.
Oh boy. All
right. So I had Janice on here, and she says she tries to channel Herbert when she walks down to the cage, and we talked about how her thoughts are kind of all over the place a little bit on fight night. When you walk down the cage, what's going through your mind?
To me, I'm probably as mentally a basket case as everybody else. Maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. I've been around a lot of fighters. I'd probably put myself kind of right in the middle. I've seen worse. I've seen more collected guys. I've seen worse guys. I'm probably in the middle. What I do is I try to just not think. It's such a cliche thing, but I just try not to think. I try not to have thoughts. Like if my head starts to think of anything, I try to be as blank and as clear-headed and just not let my head go off in any way. And because if I do start thinking about something, it's probably negative. I never have like this thought like, oh my God, I'm going to go out there and just knock everybody out. The thought in my head, if I let it creep in, is going to be like, you should have trained harder, or you should have, or this guy's got a big right hand, you got hit 2 weeks ago and you felt it. so maybe you're chinny, or this guy wrestled in college and you didn't wrestle that long in college, so maybe he's going to have better takedown defense. And those are the negative things that come into my head if I let any thoughts come in. So I try to stay really empty-headed, if you will, and just try to kind of block it all out and just kind of let the cards fall where they may, and let the muscles react once I get in there. Yeah.
Do you enjoy the walk down to the cage when all the attention's on you, or do you just kind of, that doesn't seem really like your personality?
Nah, it's indifferent. Sometimes I like looking back, like my son. I took down most of my fights on YouTube when I was applying for police jobs. I didn't think it was a good thing to be on there. I used to have like highlight stuff and all that up there, but there was like one fight on there, and my son's like into YouTube. You can watch like different YouTube channels and all that stuff, right? Forrest knows. And then so he, like, I don't know if I think I put it in, and I was like, oh, you like YouTube? Check this out. And there's like this one video of me, and so I've watched, I don't know, probably like twice in the last year, an old fight of me. And it's cool to look at it now, but in the moment, I'm pretty indifferent. I'd rather almost not do it. But
what about in a cage before the fight when you're standing across from your opponent?
At that moment, it's kind of like that. Like at that moment, it's cool. Like I like it. Stare at me, I'll stare at you. Like let's figure this thing out. Because I do think there is a little bit of you got to be fired up. You got to be pumped up a little bit to do it. Not crazy where you go out there and gas out, but you need to be like, you're fighting. Like, let's not. I've tried the whole athlete, martial artist approach, level-headed, and then I've got my butt kicked. I need to be a little fired up. Like, this dude's going to punch me in the mouth, and I'm going to do the same, and let's stare at each other and figure it out. So in the cage, I'm cool. It's very one-on-one at that point, and, I don't mind that so much.
You talked about the extremes of basket case and not basket case coming out. As a coach, who is the worst person I worked at? Basket case? You don't have to throw them under the bus if you don't want to, but I would. And who's the best? Who's the calmest? I would have to say the calmest I've ever seen is Bornaro. Matt Bornaro, who's down in Albuquerque right now.
Yeah, I would agree. Bornaro and Frankie were pretty calm. I don't think there's been instances of who else? No one's ever tried to run out of the arena, but there's just been like little quirks where, like, for instance, Sabino, who, I love the kid. He was young when he started his fighting. Sabino Scarpone, he's a pro fighter, talented kid. But he would like have like this tea that he would drink, and he would like, which he never drank before. He was like, I'm gonna drink this tea before I go out, and I'm like, why? And then he would take like these pre-workout supplements, and it was like 4 hours before a fight, and he'd be jacked up all before the fight, and then you still got 3 hours before.
I was at the weigh-ins for all that you're talking about, and then we were in the opposite locker room, that whole fight that you're talking about right now. Yeah. I remember all of that.
Yeah, and he just, and trust me, he's not the only one, so I'm not like throwing him under the bus. And he was young. He was like 22 or 21 when he was doing it. But, you get, what it is it's like people are trying to channel the nervousness. They're trying to like get the edge. Like, I'm going to do this because I'm nervous right now. Like, there's a famous, in our gym, like Pete Mazio, for his first pro fight, his first amateur fight, he wanted a hotel. So we go to Ohio, Euclid, Ohio, and it's like in a not good area of Ohio. I mean, this place is a little shady, right? And Pete's like, I got a hotel, and it's like a motel, like $20 a night, people dealing drugs out of the back, and seriously, I mean, it was bad.
Sounds like every place Don Lilly takes me when we go to fights.
Yeah, Don's not springing for the Embassy Suites. But so Pete, I'm like, dude, we're not staying at this place. He's like, I have to. He was like stuck on it, because you could tell he was like trying to put his head into something, like nervous energy. I got to get this room. It was like stuck in his head. So then we check into this room. There's literally people dealing crack, prostitutes, and I'm like, dude, Pete, you want to stay here and get shot? That's fine, but I'm going to the arena, right? So we get him to come with us. He fights, he wins, and now he's got to go back and pick up his stuff. And now that his head is clear, he's like, why did we get that hotel room? And I'm like, Pete, I've been trying to tell you this but you could tell, and it's just what it is. It's nerves, and you're trying to deal with it and channel it. And he's way better now. But in that moment, that's a good example of.
That's like Windrum with the waterfalls.
Oh yeah, he's
always checking out the waterfalls. Yeah, before the fights.
Hey man, it's a stressful thing, man, and they're real emotions, and fighting is tough. You're putting it on the line in front of a lot of people, and there is a lot to lose. And people handle it in all different ways. So
what's the craziest thought you've ever had in a fight? We talked about this a couple times too.
Man, fought in like in a real fight when I was out there. I guess on a positive side, when I was in the third round with Elias Theodoro, who's basically just beat my head in that last minute there. His corner is screaming TKO because he's finished everybody. So the fact that I went to a decision with him, like they're like, finish this kid, like keep your, be a finisher, right? And I remember thinking, there's no way this kid's gonna finish me, and he was literally smashing my face in. I mean, most refs should have stopped it, but hearing that corner say finish him, I remember thinking no way, and I found some type of energy to at least defend myself to go to the scorecards. I guess I'm probably grasping at a moral victory at that point because I lost pretty decisively, but that was like literally a moment where like you drew from the crowd or a coach and you literally changed. Because if he wouldn't have said that, I probably just would have went out. Like, whatever. I mean, what am I gonna do? My head's getting pounded in. I'm bleeding all over the place. What's another minute? But when he said that, I was like, no way. And I survived that last minute. So that, I guess, was in a positive way. And then crazy things. In the moment, I can't really think of too many, but sometimes you get negative. If you get stuffed in that takedown, you're like, and then those same negative thoughts start to creep in, and that stuff's happened before.
The two thoughts I remember having is I was choking out that kid when we were in Pennsylvania, and I thought we were gonna get swarmed in the ring when I was choking him out.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, Eric, get me out of the ring, man. I'm scared.
Yeah, you choked out the hometown guy, and you did it pretty impressively, Yeah,
there was like these 60 people around the ring that all came to cheer him on, and they're all standing around the ring, man. I didn't want to get out of the ring after that fight.
Yeah. Sometimes the fight, the venue security and layout, man, there's some real, people get crazy, and I've definitely seen some of that. Yeah.
I think the second one I can think of is John Jones was commentating one of my fights at Raging Wolf, and they had me against the cage, and I was working the guard, and I was working for armbar, and like John Jones was telling me. I could hear him talking. And he's like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to use his guard. And I turned to him. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? That's like my one John Jones story I have.
Oh, I got a couple of John Jones stories.
Oh, we can't talk about those.
We can't. But I can tell you one thing about John Jones is, he told me he commentated on one of my fights too, and then he saw me coaching, and he's like, "Are you a coach or are you a fighter?" I was like, "Oh, I'm both." He was like, "Adam," he's like, "You can't do both." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Who is this guy?" He'd be like Stephan Bonner, which was a big deal, but that was like it at the time. He wasn't the champion of the world. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "You can't do both." He's like, "You have to fight or you have to coach. You can't do both." And I remember thinking, "No, I can do. I can do whatever I want. People always tell me what to do, and they're 99% of the time they're wrong." Now, did I accomplish them both at the highest of its potential? Maybe not, but I did both, so he was wrong, so forget about him.
Crew Mark showed him a spinning elbow that he finished Bonner with, actually. He showed him the same elbow, like right before the fight, and then he went out and he hit that elbow in the fight against Bonner.
Okay.
I wanted to throw that to Crew Mark real quick.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
I know family can be pretty tough with fighting. Can you talk about some of the issues you had with your family during your fight career?
Yeah, during the career it was tough. Specifically like the support issue comes up. A lot of times what I think I need from support from my wife is not what is maybe even possible for her to do, and then she is doing things to support me, but it's not enough. So she's doing something to support me, but I'm still complaining that she's not supporting me, which just basically leads to just a terrible fight camp. And the answer is probably on both sides. There's probably a little bit that we both could do to meet in the middle, but it's tough because you're such an emotional. You're tired. You're hungry. You want to sleep, but the house is a mess. You got to clean the house, and it's like, so you haven't cleaned it in 2 days, but she asks you at the worst possible time, and she's been more than patient and supportive, but still in that moment you don't view it that way. So from a family perspective, from like a marital perspective, the support thing was kind of like an ongoing thing with me and her. Now it's great. Now she like supports me at the gym and supports me going out of town, and it's cool. But when we were younger, it was a little bit more complicated.
Do you think that's because now as a coach you spend less time training? Well, maybe not less time training, but when you come home you're not miserable because you're not cutting weight. There's a lot of different things going on. And I got one more thing to add to that. How much money have you actually made coaching fighters?
Oh, Jesus. honestly, truthfully, I have lost thousands of dollars coaching fighters, and I wouldn't say 50,000, but I would say thousands coaching fighters, because that's a whole show in itself, and the thing is with coaching fighters is someone has to wrap their hands. Someone has to put gas in the car. Someone has to pay for your license to get licensed to even be in the corner. Someone has to, pick up the bill when you go out to eat and celebrate. And those are all things that, as like a mentor and a coach, you try to take, you kind of try to do. But at the end of the day, when the bill comes and when you look at your bank account, I mean, and they have no idea. The fighters have no idea. And to me, I almost am okay with that. What I do care about is like the promoter will give the fighter like $100 in gas money, and you drove the fighter down in your car, and the fighter keeps the gas money, and you're sitting there like, and that's happened at least 15, 20 times for me. And what do? Do you hassle a kid who's going through this for $50, $100, or do you just whatever? But at the end of the day, the bills add up, and yes, it's very easy to lose a lot of money as being a coach, no doubt.
Awesome, man. I think we're going to get into the Fandoozy questions on Fandoozy.com, which is the number one internet debate site on the interwebs. Fandoozy.com. It's like Twitter with a winner. We go on there and we talk, and then we rate the conversations as everyone that debates on there can score the debate, or anyone on the website. And, of course, Caveman is the leader. After Axel Neff told me I would never be the leader, ever, and he posted on my wall, I'm now the number one Fandoozy leader. Just so you know, Axel. So it happened. And Chris is going to read us some questions. And I'm going to take a piss.
Axel, I think if you're listening, that is a challenge. First thing I'd actually like to ask you a question, Erik, if you don't mind. What is your most memorable moment in fighting, whether it was when you were a Marine or through where you are now as a coach? What's your most memorable moment?
There's a bunch, actually, and my top moments are as a coach. I enjoy the coaching a lot. I wish I could do even more with it. And one of the best moments, and like I said, was when we had Frank Scalzo and Pete Mazio. They both fought for amateur titles against two hometown guys in Broomsfield Arena, I think it was, in like Rochester. Okay. And they both won. They both got the finish against two super tough dudes from that local gym in the main events, and no one gave them no one gave them a chance that night. They both won. They both finished the really tough opponents, and then it was like they were the tag team champs, because they were like, one was a 145-pound title, one was a 155-pound title. We won both fights. They got these big belts. Everybody's mad because they beat the hometown guys, so Pete Mazio and Frank Scalzo, that was definitely one of the top moments that I've had since I've been in the sport. Just seeing those guys win and playing the night, or playing the bad guy that night and being the spoiler, that was just an awesome moment.
Yeah, proud moment as a coach, I
Sure.
can imagine.
Yeah.
So I'll get into some of the questions that we have here. Larry Torch from Buffalo, New York, he wants to know what it was like to work at the White House.
Well, I actually didn't work at the White House. I mean, we were
Torch doesn't know.
Yeah, I didn't work at the White House. We frequented there, right, because we pick them up on the front lawn and stuff like that. And I was there for a couple times with family. They let us bring family and like that, the gripping ring I talked about earlier. But I worked for the White House. I worked off of their schedule. So all I can say to people who think, like, especially now with the social media the way it is, like, everyone thinks, they know everything's a conspiracy. Everything's like, oh, he did this for that, this and that. I've been at like the lowest glimpse of the inside, like 1% of what a real insider, White House political guy would really see. But I've seen enough to know, like, it's just, people are just doing the best they can. Sometimes it's so chaotic, and there's so many demands, and there's so many people that administrations are trying to keep happy that, so I guess what I would say to people who might look at some of the stuff on TV and think all these conspiracies and all these, like, witch hunts, like, a lot of the times it's just chaos, and people are just trying to do their best and keep everybody happy,
Yeah. Larry also wants to know who gave you the nickname the Bull and why.
So the Bull came from me attempting to learn striking as a wrestler. I kind of just pushed straight forward, and so I went to a Muay Thai gym, which I didn't even know what Muay Thai was at the time, but they let me spar like the first day, and I just like ran into people that were strikers and got beat up. And then they would try to show me some techniques, jab, cross, hook, rear leg, stuff like that. And then I wouldn't do it. I would just run right into people because it was so, I didn't want to get hit, and I'm new at it. So the coach was like, you're like a bull, you just run it, you just keep running in there, you're like a bull. And it just kind of stuck. I liked it, and I just kind of kept it around.
And he turned himself into a professional kickboxer as well.
No.
Yeah,
Impressive.
I tried.
Okay, three-time Stanley Cup champion Craig Muni is asking if it's better to have as many amateur bouts as possible before you turn pro, or would you rather turn pro immediately?
Well, first off, that's pretty cool that a three-time Stanley Cup champion is asking questions. But besides that, yeah, there should be a specific map laid out for the amateurs. So you need to fight a couple fights that are probably easier, or guys you should beat. Make sure you like it. Make sure you're enticed by it. Make sure your chance of getting really hurt or getting embarrassed isn't too high. Just kind of dip your toes in the water for your first fight or two, and then it's like, are you in? Yeah, I'm in. I want to go pro. Yeah, I'm in. This is for me. Or you're not. And if you're not, then no hard feelings. It's cool. But if you're in and you want to keep going, then you have to map it out. Like, okay, this dude is X style. Let's see if we can beat it. Then your next fight is Y style. Let's see if we can beat that. Then this guy is tough all around. Let's see if we can do that. And you got to kind of try to go up each opponent in theory. I mean, sometimes guys get hurt and you got to do late replacements, but the theory would be a couple easy fights, one or two, and then look at specific styles that we match up against and see if we can beat. Can we beat the wrestler? Can we beat the jiu-jitsu guy? Can we stand up with the stand-up fighter long enough to set up our takedown? And then see, and then how they progress in camp, and then just keep finding these opponents, and then your last couple amateur fights can really just be whoever. And if you've done that, you've mapped it out right for 6, 7 amateur fights, maybe all the way up to 10. Then at that point, when you've had 10 amateur fights and you're fighting good opponents, you might as well turn pro and make money.
Sure.
Because the level of amateur that you're fighting is pretty much the same as a beginner pro. And why get your head beat in for free when you could turn pro and receive a payout? You know what I mean?
Great point. Great question. Okay, this is just a fun question, and Mrs. Caveman wrote in on Fandoozy today and said, Eric, I heard you recently took your wife on a painting date. First of all, she wants to let you know that is very sweet. Secondly, rumor has it that you're actually a very good artist, or at least one who appreciates art. How does painting or other more static forms of art complement MMA, and how do they both affect you as a person?
Well, my wife kind of took me on that date, so she deserves the credit for that. I used to be I'm not anymore, but I was pretty into, I guess you'd say, into art. I used to draw all the time and paint some stuff for my kid and stuff like that. Just nothing crazy. I don't know, just hanging out and just kind of lets the mind relax. So she kind of did that because she thought it would be fun, and she also knew that I was kind of like that stuff, I guess you'd say. So credit goes to her, but it was cool and it was fun. You just hang out and they kind of walk you through how to paint a picture that's up on the board in the front of the classroom. And what I would say is, if you don't have a hobby as a fighter that's not fighting related, you better find one, because you can only beat your body up so much. You need to be able, and that's why if Billy, you mentioned going hiking. Hey man, if that works, go hiking. If it's time with your kid, do that. If it's time with your fiance, if it's a vacation in the tropics, whatever. But you can't just be wrapped in athletics all the time. At least not for me, because that mental side of it just can really get overwhelming.
I think you just got me in trouble.
Why? Because you don't have a hobby? But you do. I mean, you're coaching the kids class. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there you go.
That's not athletic.
But it's your passion, though.
And I think any kind of artwork is kind of like meditation, right? So it's got to be good for the mental aspect of it. Kind of take you away from fighting for a little bit, I'm assuming.
Sure.
Okay. Another write-in from the Caveman family, Caveman Jr., Forrest, who is with us today, wants to know, did you ever beat up a bad guy like you beat up my dad?
What I would say is I've used the appropriate amount of force necessary to apprehend any criminal that I've come into contact with.
And we thank you for that.
Yeah, so I don't know. It probably gets a little crazier at the gym. The problem is your dad's pretty good, so he's beat me up plenty of times too. So that's gone back and forth.
I just have to say, Eric actually hit me the hardest of anyone I've ever trained with. He hit me with a spinning back liver kick. It was the first and only time in 20 years of fighting I couldn't get up and protect myself.
Was that at Victory in the cage?
Yeah, that was at Victory in the cage, and you're like, get up! And I'm like, I can't move. Everything's shut off.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah, and Eric is also one of the only people that ever put me to sleep. And if it wasn't for Officer Rick Rogers, I would be dead today.
Yeah, man. I mean, a little morbid topic, but people. Joe Rogan says this all the time. When you train jujitsu, the tap is basically you saying, if you don't stop what you're doing, you're going to break my bones or kill me because you're shutting off my blood flow in a choke or whatever, right? So what Jeff's talking about is I had him in a choke one time. He didn't tap, but I didn't realize it because Jeff's so tough, and he is. So he'll hang out and stuff for a while and usually be okay. Well, he actually was put out by the choke, and I didn't know it, so I'm still choking him, and because he never tapped, and like I said, usually Jeff's,
happens for sissies.
Yeah, Jeff's usually okay in that situation, so that was a scary one, yeah.
So what happens? He's still choking me, and he doesn't stop. So Rick Rogers walks by. He's like, "Denz is out," and Eric's like, "Nope." He's still choking.
But not maliciously, but I was like, "Nah, he's fine, dude." I'm like, "Jeff's fine." And then when I let go, he's like snoring, and I'm like, "Oh my god, he is out!" And oh my god, and so that was bad, yeah.
And then you wake up, you see Erik Herbert, and you're like, "Oh shit, I lost my fight." And then it comes back to you, and I'm like, "All right, let's go." And he wouldn't roll at me after that.
Oh yeah, because you wanted to keep going. And I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna sit down and relax for a minute. We're not fighting anymore today."
Here's a paintbrush.
Yeah.
Jesus, Caveman. Paint something, will you? Anyway, Eric, I just want to say thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued service in the force now. For me, this has really been a pleasure to have you here, and I'm going to let Caveman finish up with any questions.
All right, we got to get out of here pretty soon, and you got to go to work. But I want to bring you back and talk about policing and coaching.
Okay.
We only had an hour, so we couldn't get through everything. But it was pretty good, and I just want to say it's an honor to have you in here, and you're one of my real life heroes for real.
Well, I appreciate that. You guys are cool, man. Thank you for saying that, and thanks for letting me come in. It's been fun, man.
Also, I want to talk a little bit about Diana and his son Caleb. They're both awesome people, and I just want to throw out to Diana how awesome your husband really is. I've had a whole podcast about how sometimes it's tough for women to appreciate what their men do in the gym because there's girls around them all the time. And I just want to say I've known Eric for a long time, and sometimes you have to just be quiet and listen to someone talk to really see how they are. And after a little while, you really get to see what kind of person they are when you don't say too much about them and you just let them talk. And Eric has never once inappropriately said anything about any girl that I've ever heard in my entire life. As long as I've been working with him, he's been a really honorable person and a really honorable husband. And he did not pay me to say that. That's just my honest feelings on the subject. And there's a lot of bad people in MMA, and you're one of the good ones. I know like 3 really good people. You, Keith Frant, and Crew Mark Shaw. Those are people I would die for, and you're one of those 3 people.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I that's definitely reciprocated. You've always been respectful to the female fighters and to the male fighters, and you've always just you've put your time in and you've led by example, and that's like I said, I appreciate that, and same to you as well.
Awesome, man. Next time you come back, we'll have a fight report, how my camp's going, and we'll continue the police officer talk and the coaching talk because I really want to talk about some of our guys and your coaching philosophies.
Sure, yeah. Anytime, man.
All right, part 2 is coming up, Chris.
Very nice. Again, thank you, Eric. And for Caveman, this is Chris, signing off.